I felt the cold skin of my daughter Lily as I held her hand in the critical care unit and observed the tubes going in and out of her small body. The incessant whir of machinery gave the impression that I was shackled in an unending nightmare. My 3 days without sleep had left me with a strained voice, matted hair and burning eyes, yet I still wouldn't leave her. Next, the ringing of my phone began. "My mom, not you." She spoke as sharply as a knife into sterile butter. "Your father, Madison, will be retiring tonight, and you are invited to the party. It is imperative that you go." I couldn't take my gaze off Lily's pale face as the ventilator raised and lowered her chest. "Mom, Lily might die," I said, my voice shaking. For a long time, all I could hear was the steady hiss of oxygen and the low buzz of the fluorescent lights above me. I was shivering from her frigid tone as my mom spoke next. "Stay true to who you are, Madison. I will prioritize taking care of my family." In that 1 second, a part of me broke. After 3 days of terror, exhaustion, and silent prayers, a truth that I had been too afraid to say for 37 years finally came to light. My own voice became increasingly strident, quavering, and louder. A fierce struggle is unfolding for the life of my daughter. Duties to one's family. So what gives you the creeps when you're at a social gathering? Tsutin. My mom, though, was unconcerned. "You are causing us to appear naive. From the very beginning, Madison, you have been somewhat difficult. What we've done for you is enough. Please don't blame me." Tears obscured my vision. My daughter's electronic devices went into overdrive, beeping incessantly, as if they could sense the impending storm within me. And in that split second, that was clear. One choice was to keep giving in to a mother who could never be happy, while the other was to choose the person who meant the most to me. So it was declared. The use of words I would never have thought to use. "My goodness, you cannot persuade me to leave my daughter." There was a light bulb moment for me as I ended the call. I may have been able to save our lives right then and there. "Excuse me, my name is Madison Parker, and I want you to know that there has always been a schism in my life. I have always aspired to be a part of this world, the one into which I was born. A 2-story brick house in the Boston suburbs was where I spent my formative years. On a quiet neighborhood where neatly cut hedges and American flags fluttered from home to house. As far as the uninitiated could tell, we were perfect. I felt like someone was always looking at me from the inside out. Mom Eleanor Parker believed that one's external appearance was the most important thing. She had flawless makeup, perfectly coiffed hair, and a smile that could break glass. As she deftly maneuvered among the bustling throng at her neighborhood cocktail parties and charity luncheons, she would arrange each dish to perfection and fold each napkin into a beautiful triangle. And she expected nothing less than perfection from us. This is how I feel more often than most people. Emily, my younger sister, was the shining star. Her charm, stellar academic record, and infectious grin were her strongest suits. She started getting nicknames like Little Future Lawyer while she was in middle school. Contrarily, I was there. I did okay, if not outstandingly, in class. Despite my best efforts, I was never able to break through when I played field hockey. On the other hand, I used to sneak about with my dad's old Canon camera and snap shots whenever no one was looking. I can picture my classmates laughing while they thought no one was watching a sunbeam peeking through some tree branches and a peaceful dog sitting at its owner's feet. My mom didn't see the need in my photography hobby, even though I like it. "Madison, art isn't money," she would say with a stern tone. "Your sister is a better role model than you are. All eyes are on her." I grew up listening to those tunes. I don't see why you can't be more like Emily. To my mind, there's no reason why you can't rock an Emily style. Why can't you see things from Emily's perspective? As he attempted to absorb the impact, Dad, an respected Boston firm employed my father, Charles Parker, as an accountant. This quiet man is known for his kind demeanor and gentle voice. Following my mother's reprimands, he would kindly step back, place his big supportive hand on my shoulder, and offer words of encouragement. "Your mom is just attempting to be helpful, Maddie. She wants what's best for you, plain and simple." Having said that, I was deeply aware that her conception of the best was wholly apart from mine. She wanted me to be as confident as Emily at social occasions like PTA meetings and country club galas, so she thought I would take after her. As a senior in high school, I no longer felt the need to compete. Longing for spaces where I wasn't expected to adhere, I withdrew, finding comfort in my photography and writing. The moonlight flowed over my bedroom floor as the house went silent, and I started writing in notebooks, frequently doodling in the dark. On occasion, I would daydream about running away to a big city like San Francisco or New York, where I might be free and undiscovered. In my second year at Boston University, I lived with Chris Harper. He was a computer engineering major. He had a quick wit, was quiet at first, and was so brilliant that he could solve complex algorithms in his head, even when he couldn't find the solutions. Thanks to my pictures, Chris totally got it. He thought my eccentric sense of humor charming, not embarrassing. On top of that, he never once made any kind of comparison between me and anyone else. This was the first time I had ever felt seen. Yes, it is accurate. We exchanged wedding vows on a chilly autumn evening in Beacon Hill when I was 23 years old. In the middle of a lush canopy of trees, Chris said, "I do, and put a little ring on my finger. Just the way you are, Madison. I want to spend the rest of my life with you." The cold and the intense feeling of being chosen both made me shiver. By me. My mother's lips clenched so tightly that they became white as I informed them. "Oh, so you're an engineer," she said, her tone cold and distant as she spoke the words, "How practical," for the first time. "Madison, you are throwing away your chances for the future. Just why are you thinking about getting married to a guy whose job description includes coding graduate school is a better option for you?" The only things she used to try to convince me to withdraw were her tears, her embarrassment, and her scorn. But this time around, I remained steadfast. Upon my arrival, I immediately felt at ease with Chris's family. The joyous Sunday dinners filled with his mom's renowned chicken pot pie and his dad's corny jokes. As if emerging from the water for the first time, our wedding ceremony took place in a church in Cambridge. A short, intimate ceremony accompanied by soft music and happy tears will be held. Oh no. My mom ventured out, while wearing a fake smile. As she returned home, she moaned, "The flowers were cheap. My dress was too plain, and the venue was a disappointment." After the ceremony, my dad quieted me by saying, "I'm proud of you, Maddie, never forget that." And then he handed me an envelope. We made a 2-bedroom apartment in Somerville our home by combining a variety of pieces of furniture carpets from secondhand stores and a little balcony where we could spend warm evenings stargazing. Then Lily appeared. It seemed like everything had finally clicked into place for a brief second. Her shrill, fierce scream announced her entrance and would not be ignored as the world welcomed Lily Harper into this world on a gloomy spring morning. Her gorgeous brown eyes and my unruly black hair are both passed down to her. I felt like a long-lost puzzle piece had finally fit the moment my hands were on her. Those formative years were spent in our homey apartment, rocked nightly by the melodies of lullabies, the scent of baby formula, and the incessant wailing of infants. It was common for Chris to come home from a long day at the software business with bags under his eyes. But he would capture Lily in his arms the second he stepped foot in the house. Observing them made my heart feel like it was about to burst. The price tag was hefty. Instead of taking costly vacations, we browsed sales-gathered coupons and stayed home. Nevertheless, we believed that our life was abundant in every significant way. Lily first moved forward on her chubby legs in the confined hallway. While she was doing it, Chris and I were ecstatic. Right then and there, it didn't matter if my mom scolded me or if Emily bragged about her beautiful apartment in the city. As long as Lily was healthy and happy, laughing and reaching out her sticky fingers, that was all that mattered to me. On the other hand, my mom was always interfering. At inopportune times, Eleanor would contact, "Madison, your sister just wrapped up a big case. DC is where she will end up. Conference with senators the next week. Tell me, what are you doing right this second?" Or, do you not agree that Lily would seem more put together sporting Emily's former short hairstyle? Sometimes it was disguised as concern. Are you sure that freelancing provides enough stability? Is Chris's job terminatable? A real job should be there for you when you need it, right? No easing up occurred. Even when Chris was present, she would continue to make comments. Is obtaining a master's degree in business administration anything that piques your interest? Chris raising profits might be the result of doing so. Madison should be under less pressure. As he held my hand beneath the table, all he could do was smile kindly. Our nonverbal clues had become second nature to me by that time. A gentle squeeze sent the word, "Keep her away from you." My knuckles were lightly tapped to convey the message, "I'm here for you." I was also quite good at putting on an act, such as nodding and changing the subject while seeming to smile. No matter how much I tried to block her remarks, they somehow got through. When Lily was 7 years old, Chris and I saved up enough money to take her to New York City for a weekend. Everything else was cheap, including the hotel, the activities, and the dollar-slice pizza. All the time Lily was charmed by it. As the cityscape glistened in the dark, she couldn't help but let out a delighted whoop as she leaned her face into the wind on the Staten Island ferry. Leaning her fingers on the glass, she gazed up at the towering dinosaur bones at the Museum of Natural History. It was perfect. It wasn't until we got home that I naively showed my mom the holiday photos. Sniffing it out, it would seem that charming. A romantic vacation like Paris would be a wonderful gift for her someday. By next spring, you will have seen Emily's children there. They will be exposed to a wealth of cultural influences. Gazing at the snapshot in my hands, Lily's face was one of immense joy. I felt a sudden ache in my chest. I felt that no matter what I did, it was never enough. But hey, I kept the peace. Eleanor might brutally assault me, but Lily loved her nonetheless. Something inside me clung to the hope that one day my mom would be able to look back on my life and say, "I'm proud of you." Despite my deepest convictions, that day may never come. The first Saturday of March was upon us. Tomorrow will be a boring day, grocery shopping, laundry, and maybe a movie night if Lily doesn't do her homework. Lily hurried into the kitchen, her cheeks crimson with joy, just as I was pouring the steam from my first cup of coffee into the cool morning air. "Salutations, ma'am. Would you let me tag along on Ava and her family's ski trip? In exactly 1 hour, they will be on their way." As is typical for someone with so much untapped potential, she had a twinkle in her eyes. My heart raced a little faster. Skiing tomorrow. Just considering it made me feel queasy. Ever since a little skiing mishap I had when I was younger, I've been terrified of slopes that were frozen. Even though it wasn't a major catastrophe, I was terrified. I attempted to control my emotions so that they wouldn't impact my child by breathing gently. "Sure, calm down a little. Is a helmet on?" "Oh, without a doubt," with a rolling eye, she said. "Is the battery life of your phone sufficient?" "Of course, ma'am. Do you go to extremes?" Her hair was a toy for me. "Your overprotective mother needs to laugh it off. Be cautious. I will be texting you every couple of hours." A smile spread over her face as the morning sun gleamed off her braces. "Of course, right away." I stayed at the window for 30 minutes before Ava's SUV drove away, waving. Lily, whose ski poles fluttered in the wind, reciprocated the gesture. I turned back to my coffee, trying to hide the unease that was creeping up my spine. At 11:17 in the morning, my phone rang. An enigmatic digit. Prior to answering, I was unsure. There is a certain intensity to a woman's voice when it reverberates. "Mrs. B.B. Rebecca, a member of the North Ridge Ski Patrol here, Harper. A mishap occurred concerning Lily, your daughter. She was airlifted to Massachusetts General Hospital after a collision with a tree." A passageway materialized right before my eyes. My legs gave way as I clamped down on the kitchen counter with such intensity that my knuckles became white. "Have you heard from her?" A sharp rasp from my lips. "They are trying to stabilize her while she is unconscious. Get to the hospital as soon as possible." I don't remember anything about driving there. The streets of Boston began to recede as my foot hit the throttle pedal and my fingers found my keys. I was blinded by the fluorescent light's savage glare as soon as I stepped foot in the intensive care unit. I was completely confused by the medical jargon used by the physicians. Severe brain injury, though could be involved with the spine. Perineal hemorrhage. I stared at the words intently as I waited for my brain to process them. "Is there a threat to my daughter's life?" I gasped for air. A kind physician, a calm spirit with understanding eyes and a trace of gray around the temples, replied, "She tends to be critical. Be very careful during the next 2 days. It is our intention to... Being prepared is entirely on you. Predicting brain injury is infamously challenging." They shepherded me to Lily's chamber. I gasped for oxygen because the vision was that terrible. A kaleidoscope of neon screens. My once vibrant and unyielding daughter now lay lifeless and pallid. A breathing machine. A bruise covering her temple was causing half of her face to swell, and it was gushing purple and black. I cautiously extended my hand to touch hers, being mindful of the IV lines that protruded from her arm. Mommy says, "Hey baby, I'm right here." Her fingertips produced no output. Her eyes remained closed. For 3 days I called that hospital room my home. The incomprehensible beeping of her monitors roused me from my slumber every time I curled up in an uncomfortable chair. Our discussion encompassed every aspect. She was really excited about the school dance we were working on a science project together, and she had been nagging me to acquire a little black cat. I was given coffee as a nurse, but I didn't touch it. Their voices were almost unintelligible as the physicians detailed the scans and pressure measures. Throughout it all, I felt a steady, subtle fear coursing through my entire being. When will she finally show up? If my kid were to pass away in this same hospital room, I can't help but cry. By the third day, I was exhausted to the point that I had a pounding headache from adrenaline and general exhaustion. I hadn't showered in a while. I hadn't eaten anything since getting crackers from the vending machine. My phone began to ring while I sat on the edge of Lily's bed, observing her heartbeat as it steadily rose and fell. The screen displayed my mother's name. Holding the green button with my thumb, I stared at it fixedly. Some part of me pleaded with me to simply let it go. What sparked my response, though, was an old emotion. "Salutations, ma'am." Her speech was quick and sharp. "Your father, Madison, will be retiring tonight, and you are invited to the party. You must be present. Emily isn't the only one helping out with the setup. All the kids are. We anticipate over 100 people. We will be embarrassed if you are not here." My brain was struggling to keep up. "I really can't leave Lily your mom. She may not wake up from her coma." My mom sighed in frustration. "Just sitting there won't get you anywhere, Madison. Medical experts carry out these duties. Facing challenges does not absolve you of your family obligations." It seemed like the hospital lights were flickering. Leaving my daughter's side and going to play hostess at a party was my mother's, the one who had always hammered responsibility into my head suggestion. Thirst hit me hard. "Mom, she's not hard. There she is, my daughter." "I am her rock." My mother's voice dropped into an intimidating low register. "Madison, your absence will have consequences. We have been at your side, your dad and I, for a long time. Do not make us reconsider what we did with Lily's college funds. Think long and hard about this choice you're making." There and there, at that same moment, our shaky connection snapped. The last words said by my mother echoed in my thoughts like the haunting ring of church bells as I remained glued to the phone. A fund for Lily's education. She held it over my head for a long time, insisting that my choices were bad, flawed. But on this particular instance, the stakes had never been higher. This is where my child's life unfolded. Carefully lowering my phone, I almost dropped it on the linoleum floor as my hands trembled. Snucking into the room was a nurse named Grace who had been keeping a close eye on Lily from the first night. A voice as soothing as a lullaby soothed. "Would you like me to get you anything, Madison? How about a sandwich, some coffee or tea?" She spoke so softly that I could hardly hear her as I blinked at her. I simply cannot abandon her. With a delicate touch, Grace rested her hand on my shoulder. "I understand. One must fulfill their needs in order to function. You must be really worn out, my sweetheart." I couldn't control my laughing as tears filled my eyes as I spoke. "My mom has threatened to take money out of Lily's education fund unless I go to my dad's retirement party." Grace inhaled deeply. "Are you really believing this?" It was clear from my nonverbal cues that I was unhappy. "Nothing matters more than family obligations," she said. "That being here is fantastic, and that Lily's respiration will not stop even if I am not around." A tiny line formed on Grace's lip. "A caring family would never make you pick between them and your child's life, my love. Are you unaware of that?" Yikes. I trembled a little bit. "Is it expected of me?" Throughout my whole life, Mom has relentlessly painted me as the epitome of everything that is wrong with the world. Grace stooped down next to my chair, clearly enraged with me. "This is not your problem. You're a mommy, defending her child's interests. Do not pay attention to those who argue against that." I wanted to trust her because she was so persuasive. Love, in my opinion, should not be conditional on anything. But in my head, I was calculating. My parents' decision to cut connections with me might potentially impact my sister Lily's college money. There may not have been millions, but it was plenty to have an impact. The alert from my phone sounded again. This time, Emily is the one. On the shattered screen, her text was shown. "Give it to me, Maddie. Oh, please. Every mother goes through her emotional swings. Leave Dad's affairs alone. If you vanish for a short while, Lily won't even notice." Because of the pressure, my chest felt like it was going to burst. I typed back, before deleting it. Got it backwards, deleted. I finally decided to look at Lily while putting my phone in my purse after much thought. Her eyelids remained closed and blinked slightly. Her pale lips barely moved as the ventilator hissed and screamed beside her. I stooped to a level where our foreheads were practically touching. I promise I will never abandon you, my dear, and I don't know whether you're even listening." I couldn't help but cry. Except for you, I couldn't care less about parties, money, or anything else. Afterwards, Grace stood up. "Why don't you go get a glass of water and wash your face? I shall sit down with her. You can count on me to come and get you the second something changes." That made me nervous. 20 minutes have passed. We left it at that. "Absolutely no problem," she insisted. I couldn't help but stare at the mirror in the bathroom. I have a messy bun, red-rimmed eyes, and salt streaks drying on my cheeks. Eleanor Parker had spent decades cultivating the image of her daughter as prim and polite, although she was quite different. I felt an intense twinge of shame for a split second. Had I been too focused on myself? Am I only expected to turn up to the party, put up an act, and stay out of trouble? Suddenly I was staring at Lily's face. Last winter, while we rode the ski lift together, the way she held my hand was whispering when, "Mommy, I'm afraid if I let go," not to mention that I knew about. I couldn't let go at this very moment. I went back to Lily's room and saw Dad standing there ready for me. The man known as Charles Parker, leaning awkwardly on the edge of the bed, his ostentatious coat dragging down his shoulders. A gentle "hello, darling," and escaped his lips. I wanted to spring into his arms like a diva. Despite my need, I managed to control myself. "Is Mom aware that you're here?" I said. He scowled. "She feels let down. She says that you're making everyone in the family fight." I snorted low and long. "The family is falling apart. You told your father. Making sure my baby is safe is my #1 priority." Extending his hand with caution, it appeared as though he was concerned that I may withdraw. It would be fantastic if I had the answer. My mother has always been somewhat explosive. Despite what you may believe, Maddie, she loves you. Very nothing was audible from me. There are moments when love causes more suffering than it helps. He exhaled deeply. "I will address her concerns. If you are able, reassure her." We both knew, but a storm like Eleanor Parker could only be withstood, not stopped. Unexpected beeping began to emanate from Lily's monitors as Dad left. Suddenly, Grace walked in. Just a couple spikes, no biggie. It would be fantastic if the brain was active. Stay tuned. As my heart raced, I clutched Lily's hand hard. If this is the start of her coming back to me, it would be the most incredible thing in the world. A pop song about dancing and freedom could be dimly heard outdoors, coming from someone's phone down the hall. Furthermore, for a brief instant, I thought about the feeling. Freedom is what I desire. As the sun set on the healthcare center, through the windows I could only make out my own tired face and Lily's fragile, serene form. The silence was shattered by the clatter of machines, as if someone had set a countdown for something over which I had no control. About 10 minutes before midnight, my phone buzzed again. I stayed very still while I stared at the screen. "Hi, I'm Emily." Eventually, I mustered up the courage to reply. Her only sound was a strained mutter. "Maddie, my mom, is inconsolable. She has gone to great lengths to prepare for Dad's celebration. Why don't you simply... Everyone is asking where you are. Perhaps spend an hour here." My throat hurts. "My daughter Emily is in a coma. I don't understand why you're asking me this right now." Emily gasped in a state of nervousness. "I know Lily is sick, but Mom says this is nothing new for you, always making everything about your drama. If you aren't there, she worries about the reactions. She will inform everyone that you are unstable." My chest feels constricted. Completely unexpected. That term has always been there, whether it was whispered after a conflict, yelled during a confrontation, or used to keep me obedient. I felt a great wave of despair and wrath crash over me. "Do you hear what I'm saying, Emily? It is possible that my daughter will die. Here, drama does not exist. This is my life. Furthermore, I will not leave her behind, not for my parents, nor for anybody." In an otherwise silent room, the only sound was a little static from Emily's breath. Maddie begged her mother not to cut her off. "Then she can just stop talking to me." I answered in a tone so cold that it hurt my feelings. Emily whispered, "Don't say that. We need your help paying for Lily's medical bills, tuition, and other obligations." Tears obscured my vision. "I will find the answer. Juggling 3 jobs is more appealing to me than teaching my child that love means disregarding the needs of others." Emily began to sob, her voice urgent and trembling. "I am at a loss for what to do. Mom is going crazy. Dad is attempting to reassure her, but she won't stop saying that you're ruining the family." I closed my eyes because a sharp ache was pulsating behind my temples. "I am not going to bring shame upon my family, Emily. My objective is to protect my..." Just as she was about to answer, the phone was cut off. My hands quivered as I dropped my phone upon the nearby chair. For a little while there, I felt like I had just ran a marathon and was sitting there gasping for air. When it happens, I felt a shift deep in my chest, a easing up of sorts, the unnoticed connection snapping off, and now I get it. Forgetting about my mother's pride and apologizing instead for putting my child's needs first was enough. 10 minutes later, the door swung open again. With a stride that belied her years, Eleanor Parker strode boldly into the room, the last snowflakes adorning her coat. Amidst the hospital's sterile atmosphere, her perfume's strong and floral aroma drifted through the air. She looked around, clenched her jaw, and scowled. "Very well, Madison. This is as far as it goes." My shoulders tensed as I stayed sitting. I sat down close to Lily and kept holding her hand. "No need to get angry, Mama. With her safety net in place, Lily doesn't need to worry." "Disregard me," Eleanor commanded. "How ashamed were we last night?" "Dude, you're completely clueless. People began to wonder where you were when rumors spread that you'd finally lost it. Want everyone to think you're a frantic, overworked single mom." Quietness enveloped me as I felt a cold. Opinions of others are irrelevant to me. I will not leave my daughter unattended. Eleanor felt a little twitch in her nostrils. "This narcissism has to stop, Madison. Your choices have brought disgrace upon this family for a long time. Even though you're married and skilled, you still live in a small apartment and are allowing your daughter to suffer because you refuse to accept help or behave properly." It quivered in response to my increased voice. "Do the right thing. I take it that you mean I should not bring my child to the party. Her whole survival is in stake, ma'am. Is it really your sole concern how it seems to the neighbors?" Smirking Eleanor. "Please don't take offense to my tone, young lady. From what we can recall, you and Lily have occupied the core of our being. Are you seriously under the impression that the funds from the trust and the inheritance just materialize? We will have no choice but to cut off all contact with you if you continue to disregard our messages. What will happen if Lily needs help in the future, such as medical treatment, therapy, or schooling? Is that anything you've thought about? The way you're acting is rather careless, Madison." My chest pounded like a thumping heart. It has been occupying my thoughts since her injury. And you know what else I will take care of this? Being honest and impoverished is better than being rich and dishonest, in my opinion. She had a tight jaw. "It's really ridiculous. There is no use for you apart from us. It has never been the case that way." With trepidation, I rose to my feet, but my voice never wavered. "Absolutely not, madam. In her absence, I have no meaning. Furthermore, I would rather have Lily understand that love requires loyalty at a young age than have my mother value a party more than her kid." Eleanor looked at me with a fiery intensity that betrayed the fury within her. "It appears that you have already decided." I said the word yes as smoothly as glass. "The one I choose is my daughter." Reeking of a snarl and a sob, Eleanor marched out of the room, her shoes echoing down the hall as she let out a hoarse howl. Its exit was abruptly closed. My gaze fell upon Lily. While whispering, "My darling, we will be okay. As a duo, we are more than capable of overcoming this challenge." That deep silence gave me a freedom I'd never experienced before. An hour slipped away in the tranquility. Electrifying like the wind just before a storm was the atmosphere in Lily's bedroom. All the time the automaton buzzed. I find it intriguing to watch the green lines on the screen as they rise and fall. My head drooped lower and my chin rested on Lily's blanket because I was so sleepy that I didn't notice. I nearly nodded off. I felt a slight change beneath my hand after that. I was perplexed and blinked. Then I noticed Lily's fingers, in a state of shaking. A lump formed in my throat out of nowhere. "Hey Lily, is that you, my dear? Are you—" As I got closer, my heart was pounding so fast that I thought it may crack my ribs. Her eyelashes fluttered one by one and twice. They eventually opened, albeit with some discomfort. Brown eyes, bewildered and tearful, met mine as I looked up. I sobbed uncontrollably. Incredulous, I said, "Lily, you're awake." As she approached the ventilation tube, she barely moved. Still, I saw her trying and even suffering to formulate words that slipped her lips. I gently squeezed her hand. "Stay with me, okay? The doctors will take care of the tube soon." A wave of intense emotion washed over me. Dr. Patel, a neurologist, dashed in his coat, flapping like wings. While crouching over Lily, he checked her reflexes by shining a pen light into her eyes. He then had her squeeze his fingers. Her answer is yes. Wrongfully, she managed to pull it off. As Dr. Patel turned to look at me, a cautious smile pulled at the corners of his mouth. "Look at this, Mrs. Harper. It's fantastic. I thought that was great." Indications that she is starting to come around to us are encouraging. We will proceed at a relaxed pace, further reducing the sedation. Our best bet is to remove the tube tomorrow if she remains stable. For a moment there, I considered quitting up. Relief made me tremble and I clutched to Lily's bedside. Oh my goodness, I am indebted. I met Lily's wet, glittering gaze as she gazed up at me. Consequently, for a split second, nothing remained. There were flashing lights, an antiseptic smell arguing threats and humiliation. Everything was pointless. Her little hand gently resting on mine was the only sound and sensation. From across the room, her gentle gaze enchanted me. My eyebrows furrowed as we locked eyes. "Everything is important now that you're here, my sweetheart. I was scared before you came." As our small fingers intertwined, similarly as if to state, "I am not leaving here." I had a sudden realization. It seemed obvious to me. My kid had been saved by more than just staying. I had saved my own life. A cloud of time passed. Still, though, as she continued, Lily grew stronger. She slowly started talking again, but her voice was low and raspy at first. First time she tried to form a whole sentence, she was, "I am insatiably hungry." I nearly jumped up from my seat because it was so touching and humorous. As she gingerly made her way across the hospital floor, her fists clenched on the parallel bars, her expression fixed in deep concentration, physical therapy commenced. No matter what, it was a success. Just a little bit of the old life from which we had just fled. She was eventually given the go-ahead to go home by Dr. Patel, but he warned us beforehand. There is no straight path to rehabilitation. It is possible to have headaches, fatigue, memory loss, and other similar symptoms. While you wait, make sure she is in a calm and supportive atmosphere. My word was that I told him. Back to our warm apartment. Lily slept much of the time in the beginning. Whenever she did get up, it was merely to eat toast or ask about her stuffed panda. For fear of missing any signs that may suggest catastrophe, I lowered my head. However, over time, she rekindles her past desire. I found her at the kitchen table engrossed in her sketchbook after supper one night. A mountain topped with snow drawn with a pencil. On that precise top centuries ago, destiny changed the course of events. She stared at me with an air of seriousness. "Mom, I wish we could go back there one day. Worried that it won't endure forever." My damaged heart entangled with anxieties and pride. "My sweetheart, I will stand by your side when you do. A solemn promise." Even throughout this time, our connection remained difficult between my mother and myself. By surprising Lily with expensive sweaters and lovely fruit bouquets, she tried in her own unique manner. Nevertheless, each gift came with a message dripping with veiled accusations. "Given your insistence on handling everything on your own, I hope this is helpful. I choose not to participate." It occurred to me because maintaining silence, no matter the price to my own identity, was no longer an option. As a result, Emily started checking in more frequently and sending more nice SMS. Where is Lily at the moment? Although it had its flaws, the bridge served its purpose. As Chris's parents took flight from Arizona, the scent of cinnamon buns drifted through our kitchen while they sat by Lily during treatment sessions. Apart from affection, they never once made me feel obligated to them. I stayed up late crafting captivating narratives for firms who wanted their words to stand out as my freelance writing career took off, and I soon had more clients. The price tag was hefty. Even yet, I felt a weightlessness, feeling more free. The weight that had been pressing down on me seemed to have finally lifted. College costs, medical bills, and the what-ifs are my worst nightmares. But then I'd smell Lily's room as she softly breathed. Also, besides, it had happened. Not at all pristine. But it's true in the aggregate. When I initially heard that, I believed it was more than enough. My mother was there in my living room as I looked up from my laptop. On this damp Thursday afternoon, 6 weeks subsequent to her return home, Lily found herself. Sitting on the hardwood floor, the ever-elegant Eleanor Parker gripped her hand so tightly around a leather purse that her knuckles became white. There was water dripping from her trench coat. My body froze solid. "I beg you, Mom, explain your purpose for being here." The coffee table was cluttered with medical bills as she examined our disorganized furniture, and the walls were adorned with Lily's crayon drawings. She had moist, defiant eyes that gleamed. Seeing Lily was essential, but seeing you was even more so. By crossing my arms, I instinctively secured the space between us. "Maybe you gave them a call." "You would have ended the call," she shot back, her voice trembling. I didn't say a word. The rain kept glistening on her curls as she drew near. Everything that happened that night in the hospital has left me wondering ever since, in relation to the whole thing. I looked across at her, unsure of what to do next. An anxious breath slipped out of Eleanor's mouth. For all my life, I believed that in order to be loved, one must be flawless. Since we maintained order and safeguarded our family's honor, no one would ever hold us in low regard. Nothing bad could happen if I controlled it all, I thought to myself. She seemed nervous. Regardless, horrible things happened. Nothing, not even your father's health or Lily's injuries, could have made a difference, no matter how much I tried. It was as if she were fighting off a headache. She stopped and put her fingers on her temples. I thought you were going to destroy us that night because you put Lily before the party. But maybe you were attempting to avoid embarrassment. Not to mention her. Choking was a result of my narrowed throat. Mom, I'm sorry if I was a burden. It was just too much for me to leave my kids. Her eyelashes were moistened. I understand. In regards to the important issue, you have my approval. I gulped for breath. I couldn't place those words because they had been spoken so long ago. Eleanor reached out her hand to me before gently caressing my arm. This is not my strong suit. Making room. Realizing my mistake. It is my deepest wish that we remain a couple. Possibly Lily, perhaps. There were 1,000 memories racing through my head. Criticism, disappointment, and unattainable expectations. Conversely, the warmth of her hug and the way her fingers ran over my hair as a child will remain etched in my memory forever. There were times when I tried to ignore them, but they just wouldn't go away. I let out a frightened breath. This is not the way things were, Mama. Absolutely not. I necessitate bounds. On behalf of Lily and me. Nodding, Eleanor kept her carefully applied mascara in place, as tears smeared it. Madison promised to try her hardest. I assure you that I will do my very best. The first time I ever believed she was being serious was when she said it. At that particular second, Eleanor Parker was not the cold queen I had always feared. Well, she was only my mother, erratic, afraid, and a human being. Though we remained standing there in the rain's tranquility, I realized that maybe it wasn't essential to move on from the past in order to heal. It may have just meant deciding on it would no longer define us. Summer was greeted by Boston. The days are lengthy, the sun streams in through the windows, and the air is thick with the scent of freshly bloomed lilacs. Lily was returning to school part-time with longer hair, and the scar on her temple was slowly mending like a horrible memory that had stopped bleeding. The little limp she walked with was unattended. While we were sitting on our tiny balcony, she looked up from her book and said, "Is it possible that Grandma and I will ever be able to get along, Mom?" The question rendered me speechless. I looked up at the rooftops, the sun bouncing off distant windows, trying to figure out the right expression. People hurt each other as much as they love each other. My darling, I am utterly confused. We are trying to figure things out with my granny. She tilted her head in thought, as was her habit. She might make you seem a small amount. It was before my injury, even. Her remarks were kind, yet they pierced me to the core. Yeah, she did, I said. Moving closer, in addition, you are not diminutive, Mother. You are the bravest person I have ever encountered. The pressure of holding my breath made me feel as if my heart may explode. My deepest gratitude, my darling. That means the world to me, and you have no clue. As the little breeze rustled the pages of her book, thinking back on what we had gone through made me feel weak. Medical center. Multiple displays, each beeping. The harsh cautions from my mother, plus the immovable truth that I had discovered. That sometimes, striking off on your own, not egocentric. Keeping alive is the objective. Looking across at Lily, I spoke. My sweetheart, you know. There will be challenging days ahead for you. No one will be shy about trying to shape who you are and how you make decisions. However, the choice of your identity is totally yours to choose. Love. The real kind is also not conditional. With a neutral expression on her face, she nodded. You remained then, regardless of how much the rest of us wanted you to simply go. Indeed, I said. Simply said you are my everything. Plus, you are and always will be my number one priority. She smiled at his sight. I will also choose you the next time. My skin felt the warmth of the June sun. Given that something had occurred years before, I wasn't clinging to the expectation that anything horrible would happen again. My self-worth was not being determined by the opinions of others. This very spot I was life support. Whole. Then it hit me. There were a few things I wanted to jot down that I had learned. To the next generation. Loyalty, not domination, is love. When limits are set, family units do not perish. Everyone, even your parents, has the right to privacy. Also, your biological family isn't always the most important thing. Sometimes the family you build is. I am writing to anybody this may affect, since for those moments when you must balance the demands of pleasing others with the need to be yourself. Whether you're in a quiet kitchen, a hospital room, or wide awake at 3 a.m, have you ever questioned whether you're enough? This is what I wish to convey. Indeed, you are. Sometimes the hardest choice you'll ever have to make is the one that will set you free in the end. Any of this that resonated with you? Kindly let me know yours as well. If you like this story and would want to see more like it, please subscribe and leave a comment. There isn't just you. Also, besides, sometimes picking a family may save your life.